have a bone to pick.
Oh,
Surprise.
there's a shocker.
Surprise, Chris. So we've seen a promo now for Matt James's season. Matt James said he has never been in love.
Yeah.
I have a problem with that. Do you think that he can fall in love? You've never been in love. How old is Matt James? 27, 28?
Yeah,
Never
28.
been in love, handsome guy, charismatic, doesn't have trouble meeting women, but has never been in love. What
Yeah,
makes you think he can fall in love on this season?
I've crossed this hurdle before, and clearly that was a really quick promo that ABC wanted to use. It's a jarring statement for someone who is clearly here to find love, because how do you find something you don't know what it looks like? You've never
Right.
tasted it before, you've never seen it. But to his defense, to go a little further in that conversation, it's one of those things where you think you've been in love. I feel like I've been there, and I think he realized once he got here, I've never really been in love, and I think there is that spectrum. So it's not like he hasn't had serious relationships. It's not like he hasn't explored that. But yeah, he got to the point where he realized I've never been in love, and that will be a hurdle to cross. Because I agree. I think that's something that
Yeah.
definitely helps if you have experienced it, even if you've experienced that deep heartbreak of being broken up with before. All those things factor in to making you capable and ready for a decision like that. It's like any other business.
Yeah.
You got to prepare, and that experience leads you to be good in any business you get into.
Chris, if I had a red flag, I'd be waving it right now. How do you differentiate between infatuation and love if you've never experienced it before with cameras in your face and a microphone on?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question that we're going to have to answer coming up in January. You're right.
Oh,
You're not
Chris,
wrong
you're
about
there.
you're not wrong about being leery about that. That's something that, as soon as I heard it, it was pretty jarring. And obviously, I've been doing this a long time, and there are those statements that you hear, and you're like, whoa, okay. So I need to see, how serious he takes this. Is he really sincere about trying to figure out if he can find love or falling in love? And I will say this: he is an unbelievably sweet. I don't know if you met him or talked to him, but
I have.
because I know during this COVID times we didn't get to all hang out like we usually do, but he is an unbelievably sweet, sincere, kind, giving man. He has a huge heart. So if he was a kind of playboy, just over the top charisma and this kind of like frat boy, but the fact that he is so grounded, has such a big heart, and is so philanthropic in every aspect of his life, I definitely tend to think he's got what it takes to be that guy that can find love.
I mean, that's interesting. That's good to hear because I do think because we know him or we first met him as Tyler Cameron's best friend, he does kind of have, and then they had the quarantine crew.
Yeah.
He has that frat boy kind of mentality. So if you had to describe him he doesn't have I shouldn't say that. He doesn't have a frat boy mentality, but there is this preconceived notion, the stereotype that he's a frat boy. If you
Yeah.
had to describe him in with three adjectives, how would you describe him?
Smoke show. Sorry, that was from
That's a noun. Gosh, that was I'm like, am I a nerd? Because I find that joke extremely funny.
I do too. I know when Bennett said it, I'm like, that's so good, dude. I love it. And English teachers everywhere were so excited to go to class and teach smoke show. To go back before I get away from the three adjectives, Rachel, you're dead on. I was actually pleasantly surprised when I got to meet Matt because I didn't know him. And I thought, I've seen him on social media and I've kind of talked to Tyler and I'm like, who we getting here? We getting the ex-athlete frat boy that's just going to come in and party. He's not that guy at all. He is so much more sincere, quiet, grounded, loving, thoughtful. He's a great conversationalist. As you get to know him better, you realize, talk about turning the tables on an interview. He loves to talk to people. He loves to question people. And he may have gotten to know me quicker than any other bachelor, bachelorette ever, just because he's that kind of guy. And my daughter was around quarantining with me for the first couple of weeks while I was in production here because she's online in school, and he would sit with her and just have these great conversations about life and growing up and what's it like. And I have a lot of respect for him. He's a good man.
That's really good to hear. I mean, I haven't really spoken out about this, but he called me and I talked to him for almost 3 hours before he got his phone taken away from him. And I appreciated that he reached out and really wanted some guidance on how to navigate all of this because of, let's be honest, some pressure that he's going to have being the first Black bachelor. Do you feel people will scrutinize him or he will be under a lot of pressure being the first Black bachelor, but also being that in these times?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, talking to you, I would be completely ignorant to say that he won't be scrutinized. I wish he wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I think we are getting closer and closer to the point where, you know, any minority won't be scrutinized like that. But there's going to be that. I think it will be the vocal minority, thankfully. And you see it this season with Tasha and Claire. What are people talking about? They're not talking about diversity and who's there. They're talking about how crazy it was and what's going on with Bennett. And, that's to me, when the narrative goes back to the drama and what's going on. And I think that will be overall the trending theme in Matt James' season will just be the women and how he's going about finding love. I think there will be an initial talk about him being the first Black bachelor, but my goal, kind of like with the pandemic in general, I didn't want a season where everyone's going, wow, it's a good show for the pandemic and everyone's got their masks. It's just a good television show and everybody's talking about how it's going on with Claire and Dale and Tasha. I think it'll be the same for Matt. I think you will quickly get past all that and get on to what matters. And that is this man finding love with some incredible women, by the way.
I asked Rob Mills if he thought a bachelorette was in this group of women, and he said yes, which is nice because we didn't see that from Peter's season. With Matt James, though, I do appreciate, and I understand this too. I remember I kept saying, yes, I'm the first Black bachelorette. I want to acknowledge it. I want to embrace it. But my journey of love shouldn't be any different from anybody else because love is love. And I see that on Tasha's season as well. And I even saw that with Claire. But I do feel like conversations have to be had because we are dealing with people of color. There's so much that people of color are facing right now in 2020, or at least it's just coming to the forefront. Are those conversations had? Because I know I am privy to some information, and on Tasha's season, I know coming up, we will see some of those conversations, which I very much so appreciate. Will we see that with Matt James as well?
For sure. Yeah. And I think, it's incumbent upon us to have those conversations. I agree with you. I think it's important in all respects. But I also love the fact that it happens organically because these are conversations that are had as you are dating and as you're meeting people. And so Tasha has these conversations, and so will Matt, not to a large degree. And it's not a thing that you see shoehorned in because, oh, this needs to happen so everybody can see it happens. It just happens organically. And that's when I know things are working. And that's when I know things are working correctly, is when it just kind of flows like that. And you're like, wow, what a great, thoughtful conversation. We get to shine a light on this, but in a good way, and in how people really talk and trying to form a relationship and figuring out people's pasts and what they stand for and what they believe in. Those are all huge, huge things and conversations that have to be had. So yeah, I'm glad that A, it will happen, but B, I feel like it happens in a really good way.
I'm really glad to hear that because I think it has to come out organically because Matt is a Black man. So it has to come up when he's talking about it. So I'm glad that it happens that
I'll give you a little scoop. Matt and I talk about it, and I have not seen the final edit. We are so far away from putting the final edits together as we're not starting till 2021. But Matt and I had I'd say at least a few conversations about race, about the pressure on him, about the perception of a Black man, and the world he comes from, all of that. We talked about a lot of that, some off camera, some on camera. But again, he's a very thoughtful guy, very introspective, very smart, and knows there is a light on him. And he is carrying that. And that's a lot of weight. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here of someone I walked through this fire with already. And I know he reached out to you, and I know that meant a lot to him. He mentioned you several times of, I'm glad I had these conversations of what to look for and what to look out for. So he doesn't step on the landmines you did, and he can avoid that.
Yeah.
And so he talked about to you. He called everyone in our family. He called a lot of former bachelors and bachelorettes. This guy didn't come into this blind. He really did his homework, and I respect that.
I do too. And I respect that he recognizes he hasn't gone through the bachelorette first and then became the bachelor. So he knows he's stepping into uncharted waters here. Yeah. So I appreciate that about Matt, and I'm excited for his season. Okay, what other surprises can we expect?
I'm not going to dive too much in because we're still like months away. And, I feel like it was a little premature to even put that little teaser out, but clearly you saw there's an amazing group of women, and there is drama, of course. There is this amazing man that people are fighting for, and
Mhm.
the claws come out, and it is a great Bachelor season. I'm looking forward to diving in. And again, not because of anything other than the fact it's a good season. And that's what excites
Good.
me the most. It's kind of like when I used to talk about you. It's like, talk about Rachel being the first Black Bachelorette. And I'm like, yeah, but like, can I talk about just the fact that she's a badass woman and she was the perfect Bachelorette, and it's a great
Mhm.
season. And so that's what I'm excited about with Matt, is it's just a good Bachelor season. And yeah,
Good.
he's a good guy.
We need that. We also need a happy ending, and I know you're not there yet, but I'm hoping that there's a
Yeah.
happy ending
I
with
can
all of
honestly tell
this.
you, for the first time, I can honestly say I don't know.
Oh, well, then I know it's a good season. That means it's really, really good, because then we won't know. Love to hear that.
Thank you for watching. If you want more extra, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you'll never miss a video.